Is there more to midlife than just getting through it? Absolutely. Welcome. I'm your host, Debbie Cunningham, jazz artist turned midlife mentor, and I'm here to say to you loud and clear, it's time for your midlife crescendo. Happy September, friends. Okay, summer is officially over here in the United States as today is Labor Day, so I hope you are relaxing and enjoying your long weekend. This week on the podcast, we are talking about how to avoid injury as we age with Dr. Missy Eisenhauer. Listen, this is an important episode. As most of us realize, especially post-menopause, our bodies don't work like they once did, or we are taking care of or helping our parents as they age. Knee and hip replacements are common in the world today. Falls as we age are also common, which can result in major surgery. So listen, best to avoid that as long as we can. We discuss common difficulties and what we can do now to lessen our injury later. So here's my conversation with Dr. Eisenhauer. Well, hey, everybody. Today I have with me on the podcast Dr. Missy Eisenhauer. Dr. Eisenhauer graduated from Belmont University's Doctor of Physical Therapy program in 2000 and worked as a certified athletic trainer for over 24 years. She is credentialed through the International Tennis Performance Association as a certified tennis performance specialist and titleist as a golf fitness instructor. In 2011, Dr. Eisenhauer opened her own sports physical therapy practice located in the heart of Cool Springs here in Middle Tennessee. She specializes in evaluating athletes for strength, flexibility, and balance deficits, and then creates customized fitness programs to improve their performance, prevent injury, and decrease overall wear and tear on their body. She also works with athletes to return them to their sport when acute or chronic injuries occur. Her goal is for every client to experience the healing benefits that physical therapy can provide. When not working with a patient, you will find Missy playing tennis through USTA and NALTA or enjoying spending time with her family. Welcome, Dr. Eisenhauer.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. Missy and I, as I call her, have been friends for a very long time. In fact, I remember when she started her own practice, and
Right.
I have been her patient as well as her friend for a very long time. And I can tell you from experience that she is an amazing physical therapist. And after I had a little tear in my rotator cuff, she got me back to working and using my arm and not having to have surgery. So she is amazing at what she does and amazing at what she knows about the body and how she can help you heal. But
Well,
the first,
it's all of your hard work. It's just me giving you a little guidance and a
yeah,
nudge.
I know, but I needed your guidance, and so do
Right.
your patients.
Right.
But hey, I'm all about avoiding surgery when we can
Right.
and taking care of our bodies so that we so that we will keep them from getting injured as we age. But the first question I always ask my guests is,
Okay.
can you tell us something about yourself that is not on your bio? Something personal, something maybe unique, maybe a hobby you have, just something that's about you that's not on your bio.
Well, though I know you know this, but other people may not realize how much of a Disney fanatic I am. I tell people that I would like when I grow up to go work at Disney. So I haven't hit the grown up point yet. So maybe
You know,
after 65 that I get there.
you probably could work there as a PT because I'm sure they have a few injuries from people walking around that park
I'm sure
or
there is.
tripping or whatever.
Right. I think my goal is to have the easier side though, where I just ask somebody how many people want to go on the roller coaster
Right,
and two
exactly.
people here go here and the other two there and life is easy.
Yeah, exactly.
No more thinking.
Exactly. Well, that's so fun. And yeah, Disney it reaches the child in all of us, so that's
It
pretty good.
does. It does. I think I've regressed in age every time I go. So
Well, we need that joy in our life. Well, can you tell the audience what a physical therapist actually does in case they've never had to use one?
Okay. Yeah, there's actually, I'm surprised at times how many people don't realize exactly what we do. But basically, we can work with clients that have either had surgeries or they've had big injuries from some, either a car wreck or a sporting event that they participate in. But it doesn't have to be surgical. For you to see a physical therapist, there's all types of things. We basically want to look at your body and watch how you move and pick up if there are any areas where there may be weaknesses or flexibility issues. And then we try to get you back to normal functioning daily activities. Now, sometimes it's a position where someone's a high level athlete, they come in and we're trying to get them stronger and better. But it's all about using movement, maybe strengthening, flexibility, exercises. We use a lot of soft tissue work on people, and that includes massage, different types of treatments, the ultrasound, things that will help stimulate the healing process. And it's all in an attempt to keep people moving as much as they can and get back to normal life.
Well, today I invited you here to talk about the things we can do now to avoid injuries as we age. But
Right.
as a physical therapist, what kind of injuries are you seeing in your office that seem to be common for women in midlife?
Yeah. So I think what we're starting to see is that some of the things that we used to do, because we grew up in the aerobics era, the Jane
Right.
Fonda days, all of that. Well, now we're kind of coming back and realizing maybe some of those high kicks weren't the best things for us back then. And it's a profession where information's constantly evolving. So the things that we thought were super good back then, now we're realizing, okay, that kind of wore some of our joints down a little more than what we realized. And if you look at men, you realize what football did to them in their younger days. So
Right.
it seems like this age group right now, we've hit a point where we're realizing the choices that we may have made at a younger age have started to catch up with us. And so there's a lot of different things. The body, I talk about joints and how parts of the body are made for either to be strong or they're made to be flexible. And when those are imbalanced and maybe a joint is not as flexible as it needs to be, or there's muscle groups that aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then when we go and ask our bodies to do some type of activity that maybe we haven't done in a while and aren't used to, your body's going to try to help you out if at all possible, but it picks up compensation patterns. And so it will do it for a while happily, and you'll think you're doing good. And the next thing you know, you realize you've overdone it. And I guess our age group, it's a little easier to strain muscles. It's a
Okay.
little easier at this point. Cartilage may have been worn down, and the closer that cartilage, it's on the ends of the bones. So you have different types of cartilage in the body, but you have some on the ends of the bones, and when it has been worn down and kind of overworked early in life, then it leaves your body with less cushion. And so then activities that you normally wouldn't think much about start becoming uncomfortable. And so there's not, I can't name a body part. I mean, there's all kinds of back and neck issues. And I will say that phones are not our friends as far as causing damage to the neck. And
Really?
that that is probably, I guess, a big ticket item that we're noticing, especially even with kids these days. Looking down at our phones constantly, it puts certain parts of our body kind of on what I call slack. So it puts things in a loose position, and then the body over time starts to tighten up. So then it can actually change the way your bones, your posture, either falling forward with your shoulders or your neck sticking out, chin sticking out a little more forward than it used to. Those will happen over time. Um, and then lead to problems later on down the road. So kids have come in where they've been looking down so much or playing video games and they don't have full shoulder range of motion. And,
Right.
a teenager should have all kinds of range of motion. They should have, full things. But then our age group, you start really noticing a lot of the genetic patterns that people are starting. Their mom had poor posture, and so now your posture is starting to follow into those footsteps. And so some of it you can at least slow it down if you
Right.
know the right things to do. I don't know if that answered. That was a
Yeah,
long
that did
way
it.
around that.
No, it answered a lot. Well, actually, it's interesting that you brought up the phone and screens because we can add
Mhm.
screens to that because we are on screens so much. And sometimes our posture when we're on screens, like I feel myself even now sitting up
I know
straighter because I was
you
looking down at my
yeah,
laptop as I
yeah.
interview you. But one of the things I have noticed is that we do look down at our phones. My chiropractor gets on me for that. So now I'm
Mhm.
lifting my phone up higher so that I'm not looking down because my
Right,
neck gets out of alignment, which causes
mhm,
me a lot of headache, shoulder
right,
issues. But I didn't even think about that as far as from overall perspective of health and
mhm.
causing other problems within our body, as far as even
Definitely.
physical therapy. Now
Yeah.
you mentioned, our genetics. So do we if we know, like, let's just say, what are the kinds of things that we need to be mindful of? Like, if genetically, let's say my mom had knee replacement, am I gonna have to have knee replacement? Or are there things, are those kinds of things I need to be thinking about as I'm aging?
Right. No, definitely. If you know your parents had some different bony type structures, that they had different problems, you can again slow down the damage. It's
Right.
hard to take somebody, and posture's kind of one thing that I see a lot of issues with. When people are hunched forward and you look at your mom and you realize that their neck is tilted kind of in a funny position, you can't necessarily stop the changes from happening, but you can definitely slow them and at least minimize them a little bit
Right.
by working on strengthening that promotes stronger muscles in the back, okay, that holds you
Okay.
more upright. You can actually stretch muscles that are in the front so that it allows everything to be pulled more upright. And over the years, I mean, it's amazing some of the things that I've seen people come in with. And there are times that I remember people coming in and I think, gosh, there's no way I can help that posture. It's just too far gone. And it just shocks me that when you really pay attention to yourself and start slowly but surely working on these exercises, you can change a lot about the way you hold your body. So it
Wow.
can't necessarily 100% be stopped, but it can certainly be slowed and minimized.
Well, I wanted to ask you about specific injuries that you see. Like, I know as I look to my age group and beyond, that I
Mhm.
see a lot of like joint replacements, hip replacements, knee problems as we
Right.
age, balance problems. And are there things we can do to strengthen our aging muscles and body that can help us avoid some of those injuries or at least prolong, you
Right.
know, till we
Right.
get there?
Yeah, that's part of it. Trying to prolong your ability to play golf or play tennis. That's part
Right.
of it, is keeping your body strong in certain ways so that you can play those sports and activities longer. And I think the biggest thing, so we talked about a little bit about joints are made for either being strong or being flexible, and trying to restore what that joint is naturally supposed to do is going to help prevent problems down the road. But the biggest thing, like when people have arthritis, um, different issues, the strength of the body can be a big help to decreasing the pain in those scenarios. So, knees, when people have total knee joint replacements, a lot of it could come from the fact that their core muscles were weak and their
Okay.
hip muscles were weak, and that led to more friction and force going through the actual bony joints. So the muscle, if you get it strong, it will absorb some of those forces and take away some of that wear and tear that you naturally have with different activities. So strength is a big one. Flexibility, if you don't have that in one area of the body, then the body is going to take it from somewhere else. It's
Hmm.
because it wants to help you move. It wants to help you
Right.
do what you want to do. So it has to get the movement from somewhere, but it takes it from a joint that's not naturally designed to do that flexible movement. And so
Right.
then that's where things get kind of messed up. And it's funny, the body learns bad patterns and it's hard to break them. Hard to
Yes.
break them.
Well, what do you think are some of the things we can do? Like you mentioned, strengthening core.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is what are some of the most important areas of our body to strengthen to help
Mhm.
us avoid injury as we age?
Yeah. So I think in the medical world, when we talk about core muscles,
Hmm.
we are talking about the area that is just at the rib cage all the way down to just above the knees. And that's in the
Okay.
front and the back. So that includes the abdominal muscles for one, but it also includes the thigh muscles in the front, the thigh muscles in the back, which are your hamstrings, your glute muscles, which are your hips, and then the low back, the low and mid back. So all of that is what we consider core.
Okay.
Okay, and so again, that part has to be strong and the muscles built up, and then it absorbs the forces that are put through it, because you can't really do a lot of activities without the core engaging.
Right.
And so that's where that's where you have to get that strong first and kind of understand what you're dealing with. So core is not just abs. It's more about that whole in between part between the knees and the ribs.
Okay. Now, another thing I know you and I have talked about a lot is the importance of balance. When I've
Yes.
been in your office, we've talked about balance and that
Mhm.
you see, how important it is. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of balance as we age and some of the activities that you've even told me that are simple just to
Mhm.
keep your body practicing balance?
Mhm. Yeah, so balance, it's interesting. It's really three components that you're dealing with. Balance, one third of it is your vision. Okay.
Okay.
One third of it is the inner ear. So the inner ear canals have fluid in there, and it notices whether your head's tilted to one side or up or down. Okay. Then you have receptors, is your third system there, your sensory system. So it's little receptors that detect movement, and those are found in the joints. Okay.
Okay.
So those three components together make help you keep your balance. If you take away one of those, so let's say your vision is starting to decline, that's going to affect your balance.
Really?
It is. Yes, if you some people have what they call vestibular problems or inner ear, middle ear issues. And so movements of the head can really just rock somebody's world on their balance. And so, I don't know if you've tried it lately, but if you try to maybe walk on a tightrope, an imaginary tightrope, and tilt your head up and down as you try to stay lined up on that line, it's difficult. It's difficult. So that's challenging. That's challenging the balance. The receptors are the little guys that detect movements in the body part, and they're there to correct you and help keep you balanced and prevent injuries. So if your receptors are really well trained and efficient, then if you're walking, let's say in your backyard, and you go to start stepping into a hole that you didn't know was there, let's say your foot is going to start to turn forward and down like it's going to roll.
Right.
That is a movement that your receptors pick up, and they send a message quickly to the brain, hopefully. And then the brain says, hey, there's a hole, and it should react fast enough to keep you from falling. But as we age, that reaction time gets smaller and slower. Slower, I guess is
Mm-hmm.
a better term. And so your ability to stop yourself from tripping from that hole is going to be compromised. And so the way we train balance, just little activities that you can do during the day, things like in the morning, I tell clients, stand on one foot and brush your teeth in the morning. Okay, so let's say stand on the right foot first. And then at night, when you go to brush your teeth, stand on the left foot and just force one side of your body to do all of the balancing capability that it can. And then that trains it to get a little bit faster. And then, you could do balance activities where you're closing your eyes and taking away that component. And then that you'd be surprised how people fall all over the
Oh
place as
yeah.
soon as they shut their eyes, and they're so dependent on their vision. And we naturally do things like, you've seen toddlers, the way they kind of walk with a wide stance, and that helps to lower their center of balance. When we get up in the middle of the night and it's dark and we're going to the kitchen to get some water, we don't just bebop out of bed, on our tiptoes and frolic to the kitchen. We're slow. We have spread our feet apart, widened our stance, and lowered our center of gravity to try to help out because our vision is inhibited at that point. So we try to we help ourselves in certain ways, but you can train all three of those balance components in certain ways to make things work a little more efficiently and help to maybe save you the next time you go to step in a hole.
How would you recommend, or if you have an idea for this, I mean, with the whole vision piece, because I know we can stand on one foot and do an
Right,
activity for whether it's brushing your teeth or
right.
whatever every day, because I know that that helps. Or even if we're
Mhm.
standing watching television, we can stand on one foot for a while. But
Right.
what can we do to help with the lack of vision balance? Is there an exercise we can do or something you would recommend?
There, yes, actually, so we call it tandem balance, where you have one foot in front of the other. So again, as if you were on a tightrope.
Okay.
Okay. And so you put one foot in front of the other. That narrows your base and makes you a little more unstable. And so if you are able to stay very stable with your foot like that, then you could close the eyes, okay, and take the vision out of it. Then the next step would be maybe open the eyes, but with your feet in front of each other, tilt your head back and forth, looking up and down. You can put like a post-it note up high near the top of the wall and another one down low. And you can actively move your head up and down as you're trying to balance. You can also do movement to the left and to the right. Okay. Then, if you're good at that, you can walk and practice moving the head up and down and turning left to right. So you'd be surprised. It is a challenge when you
Oh,
start getting the head movement in. But if you think about it, let's say we go window shopping. If we're walking through a mall, we want to have enough balance that we can turn and look at something in a window and not, fall over.
right,
And
exactly.
so, it's the head movements that can be trained. The way that you would go about, so that gets vision and then the vestibular system. So the receptors part of it, to train that a little better, you want an unstable surface. Okay.
Okay.
So standing on a pillow or a rolled up beach towel, something that makes you a little more wobbly, that will make the receptors activate and learn to be more efficient. So it's kind of like you want to feed your body that information of, oh, you're on an unsteady surface, and then your receptors detect that information, send it to the brain. The brain sends back another message that says, hey, you've got to raise your toes or you've got to push down with your toes. And this happens, of course, in milliseconds,
Right.
but it will detect and then it'll get better. So as soon, as you practice it, it might be unsteady at first, but then the next time you go to lean forward, your receptor catches it faster, and then the impulse is faster, and then the brain is faster. We all know how the brain needs help at this point,
At this point in
a
our
lot of
life.
help about activating quickly.
Yes,
So that's
exactly.
how you would train those 3 different systems.
Okay, so I know there's a product. I have one, like a balance board that has a curve on it, so
Mhm.
that you have to like kind of balance yourself, otherwise you're gonna fall over. But
Right.
so those kinds of things are actually helpful even
Yes,
for your brain to activate your balance in your body.
they are. Yes.
Excellent.
So it's all about starting with something that seems easy, and that could be standing with 2 feet together, and that's super easy. So then stand 2 feet together and close your eyes.
Mhm.
Okay, and then that should present you a little more of a challenge. If that's not hard enough, then go to 1 foot. And if that's not hard enough, go to a wobble board, like what you were
Oh,
talking about,
yeah, yeah.
or a cushion. And so you constantly want to up the challenge just a little bit so that there is some movement going on so that that's feeding the brain the right information.
I know that my chiropractor told me one time to close my eyes and
Mhm.
march in place.
Yes.
And I couldn't I moved. I couldn't
Right.
even when I had my eyes open, I could march in place, but I didn't realize when I closed my eyes, I actually was moving because I was losing my center
Right.
somehow.
Right. Yes.
Well, is there anything else as you think about injuries as we age that you would recommend that we be doing or that we need to be doing?
Mhm. I think I was trying to think through the biggest parts of the body. I think posture, if you can keep the posture muscles strong and keep chest muscles stretched out and everything, good posture is going to prevent shoulder injuries and then neck injuries. So that's a big deal.
Okay.
Keeping your body strong from your hips and those core muscles will help keep all of the lower extremities a little more healthy. I was telling my mom the other day, just adding in, you know how you go from a chair from sit to stand. Okay, just simple things of not using your hands to help push you up or catch you on the way down. If you could just add simple thing like maybe sit to stand 10 times in a row, and that gives your body just a little bit of strengthening through your quad muscles in the fronts of the thighs. Those little things can add up over time, and plus that stresses your balance just a little bit. You Any kind of light strengthening, we talk about people doing cardio work. Okay, that's good. I wouldn't quit that because the heart definitely needs that, but your whole body needs a little bit of light strengthening just to keep the muscle tissue in good shape. One thing we didn't touch on a lot is, I would say, probably women in their 40s, the muscle tissue starts getting uh, a little less viable, is what we would consider it. So it's not as strong. And so it sets you up for easier things like muscle strains or muscle tears. Men seem to hit it more in their 50s. They last a little bit longer. But then both men and women, by the time we hit 60s, if we haven't been doing light strengthening all this time, then our muscle tissue is there. It's just kind of in a little mushier state. It's not as tight and not as strong. And so as we age, we're gonna have decreases in strength, but if we stay on ourselves to strengthen and work on balance, there's not any reason, and flexibility, we don't forget that, there's not any reason that we have to lose it all, you
Right.
know. You can take a 95-year-old and get them stronger. So
Right.
you can get them more flexible. So there's not an age limit where there's just this end and there's nothing else to do.
And, you mentioned flexibility, and, of course, I'm extremely flexible, but I stretch every morning. I
Good.
literally can bend down. Yes, I can touch the floor flat palm,
Good.
and my husband can't. He's like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I
Mhm.
keep doing it every day so that I
Right.
can maintain that flexibility and not lose it."
Yes.
Are there other
Yeah.
things we can do for s I mean, to keep our flexibility?
Basically, I would find the areas that you feel the most vulnerable. So if you think to yourself, gosh, if I fell in the middle of the yard and I had nothing to help me up, could I get up? Well, if you're worried about that, you need to practice that every day. You need to
Oh,
get down in the floor without any objects to help and get yourself up. Maybe do 2 or 3 times of that, but you need to find what you feel most worried about and then
mhm.
push yourself to do that activity and get a little bit quicker at it better.
That's a great idea too. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah,
But that is true, or
right.
even walking on uneven terrain carefully just to get
Exactly.
used to those receptors, being
Mhm,
mindful of. I think the biggest thing as we age, we need to be mindful of the possibility of injury so
mhm.
that we're taking care of our bodies,
Right.
doing the things we can do to build some strength in our bodies,
Mhm.
build some strength training. I know when I was having knee issues, you mentioned to me I wanted to know what I could do to get my knees stronger. He went, "No, you need to strengthen your hips."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, okay," because that takes some of the impact off the knees,
It does.
which
It does.
was great. So I think as we age, we need to be mindful of those small injuries maybe that we're having right now or
Mhm.
things that we feel weaker in and
Yeah.
strengthening those areas.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention, I was talking with my mom about, I'm trying to she's 85, so I'm trying to get her to listen to me, any strengthening, which I'll tell you, you cannot treat your family. That is not a thing you can do. But I had her work on tapping her toes up and down. Just
Okay.
kind of feet flat on the floor, raising your feet up and down, and maybe do 50 to 100 reps of that, repetitions. What that does is it strengthens the front side of your lower leg. It also helps you to pull your toes up as you walk. You should have a normal land on your heel and push towards your toe with gait. If you don't have strong muscles in the front of the lower legs, then your toes are more likely to drop and scuff across the floor and that trip you. And
Oh,
so
okay.
just simply strengthening, keeping those feet tapping, several times a week, keeping that reaction time going, that can help, keep you from having the falls, which falls are a big problem, especially as we age. The fall can really take you down if you don't watch it. So trying to do things to avoid those are helpful. But I was trying to tell her my mom, she had some sort of little motor vehicle accident, which she
Oh,
she
no.
wasn't hurt, but she bumped a fence. And so it kind of messed up her car. So it wasn't a big deal, but it makes us all question, should she be driving at 85?
Right. Right.
So I talked with her and she had mentioned maybe getting some part-time help to drive her here and there. But I asked her, I said, are you planning to drive some? Or are you planning on turning it over to everybody else to drive you everywhere? And she said, well, I want to do both. And I said, then you don't need to hire somebody to drive you. You need to make yourself drive more. And maybe that means
Oh.
getting out at 6 in the morning when nobody's on the road, hopefully, and practicing stopping and starting and moving your foot back and forth from the gas to the brake, moving the arms, hitting the brake while you're turned, looking at just something that helps keep those nerve pathways intact. So I don't know that she really wanted to hear that, but I was like, once you turn it over to someone else, your system is just going to decline from there. And it's not likely in 5 years you're going to pick back up and start driving again. It
Mm.
just, you've got to stay on it.
So
Uh,
that's like neuro pathways then
it's
of
nerve
things that we've
pathways.
learned, and
Uh,
that as we stop doing that, then our body stops putting effort into that?
exactly. So there's a lot of truth to the you lose it if you don't use it.
Right.
Okay. And that's the case. So if someone is a little unsteady and they start relying on a cane to help them walk, then over time the body's going to get used to having that extra assistance. And so when you take it away, it's going to be much harder to try to walk without it.
Right.
Once you put yourself on a walker per se, then it's going to be harder to backtrack and go just to a crutch or a cane. So you have to push yourself into the uncomfortable zone to try to keep your body functioning at as high a level as possible. But then you have to be careful with it. I don't want to send my
Right.
mom out driving in the middle of rush hour traffic just so that she gets used to the chaos. You
Right.
got to be wise about how you handle it. But if you don't use your body for whatever function it's made to do, then you're going to lose it over time.
Those abilities. Yeah, and obviously there are times after surgery and things like that where we need a walker or cane when we are healing and
Right.
progressing toward. But it's a good reminder that we do need to use our body and that we need to push our limits a little bit to keep ourselves moving forward, so that we realize that if we don't, we
Mhm.
can decline
Yes.
if we
Yes.
don't keep using what we have and
Yes.
strengthening what we have. Well, that was really good. Is there anything else that you've thought of that maybe we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with the audience about just of helping ourselves avoid injuries as we age?
Well, I tried to think through. I think the biggest thing is just pushing our body to keep progressing and a little bit more and a little bit more, and then that will slow down the decline. But we kind of touched on things to help your gait, to help you not fall, things to protect the joints, balance, all of those components.
I appreciate you sharing your expertise because I think it's so important, and you've helped me so much learn about my own body and what I can do
Mhm.
to, I mean, the fact that I didn't have to have rotator cuff surgery was such a
Right.
blessing. So I appreciate even those exercises you taught me how to do so that I wouldn't have to do that. Dr. Eisenhower is located in Middle Tennessee, here in the Nashville area. And if one of our listeners wants to reach out to you for physical therapy, where would they contact you online?
So they can find me. My business name is Physical Therapy Specialist of Tennessee. And my website is ptspecialisttn.com. And there's an S on the end of specialist. And then my phone number, my office number is 615-305-8896. And it's probably better to just shoot me a text. In case I'm working with somebody right at the moment, I can get back a little quicker with a text.
Okay, great. And I will put those links in the show notes so that you can contact her if you need to. Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you sharing your expertise and helping us learn how to take care of our bodies so that we can avoid as much injury as possible as we age.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and educate everyone, because physical therapy, it's amazing what I've seen it do over the years for people. So sometimes it's shocking to me that somebody can make a comeback from some of the things that they have. So I believe in it.
And I believe in it too, and I definitely have felt its effects. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Eisenhower. Just adding these few tips to your daily or weekly routine can help you strengthen muscles and gain better balance in order to avoid falls as you age. These are easy things to do that can make a world of difference. Be sure to share this podcast episode with your loved ones so they can learn these tips to avoid injury as well. And speaking of the podcast, have you enjoyed Midlife Crescendo and found it helpful to your midlife season in any way? It would mean so much to me if you could write a review of the podcast and rate it wherever you listen. It helps other midlife women find it on the podcast platforms, and it helps me spread the word about it. I want to share this info with as many women as possible to help them in their midlife season. Unfortunately, it's hard to get the word out, even on social media these days, without reviews and shares. So thank you in advance for reviewing this and even sharing your favorite episode on your social media pages. It will help me so much. And if you need help knowing how to review the podcast on a particular platform, please go to midlifecrescendo.com and click the button on the top left that says Review the Podcast Instructions for step-by-step explanation of how to leave a review where you listen. Okay, next week on the podcast, we are talking with author Allison Allen about navigating seasons when we feel unseen. So be sure to tune in next Monday. Thanks for tuning in today, and remember, midlife is just a brand new season to find your passion and purpose for your grand finale. Talk next week.